Thank you to Nurex for sponsoring a portion of today's video. Periodically, we hear this expression floating around the internet and real life that relationships are hard or marriage is hard. And today I want to share why I disagree with this phrase when it comes up, and I think it kind of depends on what you mean by hard. So I'm going to explain in what ways relationships are supposed to be hard and in what ways it's really not normal if they are hard. I've been in relationships that feel very hard, and I've also been in a relationship, my current one, my marriage, where things have always felt extremely easy. And now maybe some people are defining what makes a relationship hard differently from me, but in the way that I define what makes a relationship hard, in my opinion, if your relationship feels like this really constant, grueling difficulty, it might be because that's just not a healthy relationship, or even that you're with someone who's making it very hard, or maybe you're actually making it very hard. And because you've never experienced anything different where it could actually be much smoother, you don't realize that there's another way to live. And it's easier for us to accept that all relationships are hard than for us to accept that actually there is an alternative out there, and I'm just choosing not to experience that. Sometimes when I see these really dramatic Instagram captions, for instance, of couples who are saying like, we've had our ups and downs, but we've worked through it and that's all that matters, and marriage is so hard, but that's part of the process. I'll be honest, sometimes this sounds like a cope. Your relationship shouldn't be that hard that the hard times are at the forefront of your mind, even when you're supposed to be celebrating the good times, like an anniversary, Valentine's Day, or a birthday or something. And I think that sometimes people glorify the struggle because it gives them a sense of meaning in a situation where they actually feel very powerless, where they realize that things are never going to get better. And making meaning of difficult experiences is a sign of resilience that's typically a good coping mechanism. But in the case of a relationship, you do have the ability to walk away. You do have the ability to remove the stressor and to find something that works better for you. But you just say relationships are hard because you're not ready to let this one go. You're not ready to take responsibility for the fact that you could let this go. It's a way of relinquishing responsibility. Because if you believe that all relationships are hard, then you don't have to look the truth in the face about the fact that there is another way to live. Here's the thing. Is it that relationships are hard? Or is it that one of the partners, or maybe even both partners, are making things hard in this relationship? In just a moment, I'm going to explain the ways in which I think relationships can sometimes be hard. But before I do, I want to talk about something else that shouldn't be as hard as it is, which is access to healthcare. And on that note, thank you so much to today's sponsor, Nurex. Nurex makes it easy to stay on top of your health with affordable specialty level care right from your home. From prescription skincare to birth control to mental health treatment to weight management, you can get personalized treatment 100% online without waiting for an in-person appointment. Connecting with a healthcare provider and getting treatments delivered to your doorstep without even needing to go to the pharmacy. Nurex accepts insurance for many types of treatment, but they also keep their prices affordable if you don't have insurance. To date, Nurex has helped over 2 million people take control of their health. It's convenient, private, and hassle-free. One of the services that Nurex provides is mental health treatment. Specifically, they specialize in depression, anxiety, insomnia, PMDD, postpartum depression, OCD, social anxiety disorder, and seasonal affective disorder. So how it works is you request your treatment by completing their online medical consultation, you connect with a licensed provider, and if clinically appropriate, they prescribe treatment, and then you get a 1 to 3 month supply delivered to your doorstep. It's way faster than needing to wait for an in-person appointment, which often takes 1 month or more. And if you have a question for your provider, you can just message them. No need to make any calls or spend any time in waiting rooms. And if you have insurance, you could be paying as low as $0. Thank you to Nurex for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Taking control of your health starts here. Go to www.nurex.com/psychology with Dr. Anna to get started, or click the link in the description. That's nurx.com/psychology with Dr. Anna. Is it that relationships are hard? Or is it that one of the partners, or maybe even both partners, are making things hard in this relationship? I know certain people out there, and many of them aren't even abusive people that I'm thinking of, but they're people who I know will make being in a relationship with them super difficult no matter who they're with. I've spoken before, and I firmly stand by the idea that the worst trait in any sort of person you're in a relationship with is stubbornness. Stubborn people make relationships so difficult because relationships are all about negotiation and compromise and finding a solution together. But if there's somebody that straight up just won't budge, it's a constant roadblock every day. Or there are some people out there who just refuse to stay loyal, who, I look at them and they cheat on every person they've ever been with, and I just know they're never going to stop. They honestly just think they're entitled to cheat, and they think they're going to get away with it, and they're going to keep doing it even to the mother of their children. Or there are people out there who are just not willing to look things in the face about themselves, like working on, enmeshment with their family of origin or setting boundaries with certain people. And those things are going to continue to cause problems and consistently going to make things very difficult for them. Or there are people who crave drama because otherwise relationships are boring. So they constantly create problems out of thin air when there aren't any. In all these situations, it's not necessarily that there's an abuser. Some of these people could be abusive, but there's just sometimes something about a person that makes it really hard to be in a relationship with them because they're missing some key skill or key trait that is necessary for healthy relationships. And these things are totally preventable. You could be in a relationship that feels really easy by comparison. You could be in a relationship with someone who's not stubborn, who's not cheating on you, who isn't afraid to work on themselves, who doesn't crave drama. But if you are in a relationship with one of these people, it's going to feel really hard. And you're going to tell yourself that all relationships are hard because it's easier to swallow that than to swallow the reality that you're choosing to be in a relationship that's hard. And look, in a lot of cases, these examples that I gave, they deserve love too. It's not that we should all write them off. There might be a person who's, somewhat better fit for them. But if someone's going to be in a relationship with them, it needs to be a choice they're going into with their eyes wide open, with a sense of acceptance that, yes, this is who I'm with, but it's not that all relationships are hard. It's that this particular relationship is hard and I'm still choosing it. And that's okay with me. But let's be real. If most people were to view things this honestly, a lot of people probably wouldn't still choose that relationship. So what hard things are normal to experience in a relationship versus what are not normal to experience in a relationship? One thing that is totally normal, and if this is what you mean by relationships are hard, you're right. It's occasional healthy conflict. The exact conflict style of a couple isn't important. You could be volatile, you can be validating, you can be somewhat avoidant of conflict, and research shows that all of these are valid conflict styles. For example, my husband and I, we don't yell at each other. For us, conflict looks like respectful dissent, just disagreeing about something, maybe a brief moment of tension, and then very quickly repairing ruptures through things like humor, warmth, affection, taking responsibility if necessary. Other couples, they do yell, they get passionate, and it works for them. I don't know how. For me, that puts me in a state of fight or flight, but those couples are able to come back at the end of the day having worked through whatever the issue is, and they're just as strong as before. The one conflict style you shouldn't be is hostile, and I do have a video on the different conflict styles if you want to go in depth into this more, so you can find that up here. But to basically summarize how conflict shouldn't look, it shouldn't contain the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that research says predicts divorce, which are defensiveness, contempt, stonewalling, and criticism. The conflict shouldn't be so frequent that it eclipses all positive interactions. It shouldn't put you in a state of fight or flight. Research shows that if you are in a state of high stress, if you have high cortisol, while you're in conflict with your partner, that is predictive of divorce 6 years later. And it shouldn't leave your relationship worse off than before. Conflict and repairing ruptures should ideally bring you closer, not further. If what you mean by relationships are hard is that there will always be external stressors that cause problems, that is also true. Things like financial difficulties, the stress of school, long distances, not having enough time in the day to spend with each other, the stress of parenting, poor sleep, political instability, natural disasters, problems at work, family drama outside the dyad, health issues. These things will come up and they will put a strain on your relationship. That is normal. That is true. The key, though, is that you should be working as a team against these external stressors. You shouldn't be blaming each other for these stressors, and one of the people in the couple or both shouldn't be creating these stressors out of thin air. It's not normal for stressors to be coming from within the relationship because one or both partners are actively creating stress for the other person where it doesn't need to exist. If by relationships are hard, you mean that you need to keep putting in effort to stay satisfied in a relationship, That is also true. It is not the idyllic Disney fairy tale, and they lived happily ever after, and we never find out what happened after happily ever after. I can tell you what happened after happily ever after. Relationship satisfaction tends to steadily decline over the years. Passion disintegrates and it's replaced by a more platonic sense of friendship typically. And this is why it's really important to not get complacent, to put in an active and perpetual effort into dedicating quality time together, taking part in new and adventurous activities together, growing together as people, growing in the same direction, taking part in rituals of connection, making sure gratitude and admiration are components of your everyday life, making sure your intimate life is in order, checking in with the other person to make sure that their needs are met. These are all things that you're constantly going to need to do. And yeah, I guess in a sense that is putting in work, but that's life. You have to keep putting in work in order to reap benefits out of something. I don't think that's really a testimony to relationships being hard. That's just how life kind of works. If by relationships are hard, you mean that you're going to continue having the same issue pop up over and over again and be in a state of gridlock with your partner, that is also true. Most issues in relationships are recurrent. They have no solution and they need to be negotiated and renegotiated over and over again. Whether it's a difficult in-law, a disagreement about whether kids should be allowed to play video games, a job that puts a strain on the work-life balance of the family. Oftentimes, these gridlocks will reflect a difference in goals. Partner A wants X, partner B wants Y. And it's not something that they're willing to break up over, but it is something that constantly comes up and causes friction between the partners. The key here is, again, you work on it as a team. It's you two against the problem, not one person against the other. And if it actually is a deal breaker, then don't lie to yourself about that. If one person can't keep it in their pants, keeps cheating over and over again, and the other person pretends this is something that has a solution or something they're willing to live with when it's not, that's not normal. Yes, it's normal for problems to recur in relationships, but it shouldn't be a problem that is genuinely a deal breaker for you. That's something you're not willing to live with. So if by relationships are hard, you mean that relationships are going to have conflict. Relationships are going to be subject to external stressors. Relationships are going to take work to keep up satisfaction. You're going to keep having the same problem over and over again. Yes, all of that is true. But what things are not normal to experience in a relationship? Any sort of mistreatment or abuse or neglect? An incompatibility in values or life goals or communication that cannot be worked through as a team or is a deal breaker, constant conflict that puts you in a state of fight or flight and leaves you worse off than before, feeling like you're always putting out fires, feeling like it's just one thing after another with this person. If all you can think about even when things are good is how hard the relationship is overall, and if one person is constantly creating problems or making things hard when they don't need to be. Now, can a relationship that feels like a lot of work turn into a relationship that feels easier? Yeah, but of course it's going to take more work in order to get there. Certainly you don't need to throw out a relationship just because it's hard, especially if it's hard for a shorter period of time. But you do need to get really honest with yourself about the fact that this is not a function of all relationships. This is a problem specific to this relationship. If you can get honest with yourself, that is the very first step in actually trying to fix the issue. And maybe one day you'll be in this relationship and it won't need to feel as hard as it does. Or maybe you'll realize that this particular relationship is harder than it needs to be, and you'll find another that isn't. I hope this helped. I'll see you soon.